Hello everyone and welcome. In this video I'll be sharing my thoughts on The Walking Dead Season 10 Episode 20. As is the norm with all my videos, I won't be holding back on any spoilers, so please do keep that in mind. Anyway, without further ado, let's begin. Here we are yet again with another divisive episode of The Walking Dead. I've seen some fans come out and say it's brilliant and that it does great things with Princess's character, and I've seen others say that it's another bore fest, it's a waste of time, doesn't advance the plot and is just filler. And it seems like 10C is going to be a very hit and miss 6 episodes of the show. I mean, the first 4 episodes were hit and miss, and I expect the remaining 2 to be the same. As for this episode though, yeah, for me this was a miss. I just thought it was dreadful. I mean, if the idea of watching Princess in a boxcar for 40 minutes appeals to you, then it's your lucky day, because that's basically the episode. But if that doesn't appeal to you, like I'm sure it will to a lot of people, then you're going to find this to be a tiresome slog like I did. So let's talk about it. This episode takes place immediately after the episode 16 cliffhanger, in which we see Yumiko, Ezekiel, Eugene and Princess surrounded by the Commonwealth Guards. We see a brief clip at the start of this episode of them trying to put up a fight, but they're quickly subdued and then separated by the Commonwealth Guards, and then unfortunately we have to spend the entire episode with Princess. Technically, Yumiko, Eugene and Ezekiel do appear in this episode, but only as hallucinations, and that's this episode's big twist, is that it's all in Princess's head. So during the opening, 5 to 10 minutes, Princess is talking to Yumiko through a gap in the wall, and it turns out that there was actually no gap in the wall and that Yumiko was never there. Then we see Princess leave the boxcar a couple of times via a gap at the back of it, a little hole in the wall, and she goes to the one opposite and talks to Eugene. Apart from, well, once again, this doesn't happen because there was no gap in the boxcar and she never spoke to Eugene. Then I think about halfway through the episode, Ezekiel comes down from the ceiling and says to Princess, "Oh, I'm going to get you out of here." And then a Commonwealth guard enters the boxcar to try and give Princess some food. Ezekiel rugby tackles the guy and then basically punches him and strangles him. It looks like he's going to kill the dude, which is very unlike Ezekiel. And then it turns out that this wasn't Ezekiel doing it, it was Princess, and she was just hallucinating the entire time. And all the events we've seen this episode, none of them happened. Perhaps some of what we saw might be real. I mean, there is a scene where Princess is questioned by the Commonwealth soldiers, and she's questioned by a guy who looks like he's one of the higher-ups from the Commonwealth, and I'm not sure if this is real or not because the dude is blacked out. Well, his face is kind of covered in a shadow so we can't see him, and this is either because A, it is real and The Walking Dead doesn't want to reveal who this guy is, or B, it's because it's happening in Princess's head and because she can't put a face on this dude who is like one of the Commonwealth commanders, I don't know, he's like one of the boss of the soldiers, I'm guessing, and because she doesn't know who he is, she's then created this blacked out character instead. So I don't know if this is real or not. I mean, maybe it was confirmed in The Talking Dead, whether it was real or not, I don't know, I don't watch that show, so let me know below if this scene did in fact take place in reality or not. I do find the idea of Princess being an unreliable narrator to be interesting and trying to work out what is real and what isn't, but I also don't really see what this adds to the show unless The Walking Dead plans to then pick up on this and use this again in the future. I mean, maybe in Season 11, when the characters are at the Commonwealth, maybe a character will attack or kill someone, so perhaps maybe, I don't know, Gabriel seems to be losing it lately. Maybe we'll see a scene of Gabriel kill someone, and then it will turn out that it isn't actually Gabriel, it's just Princess, and it's her hallucinations carrying out this. I don't know. I mean, if they plan to use it again in the future, then I can see why they set it up in this episode, and you know, this episode will be important going forward. But if they don't do anything with it, if this is the only episode in which we see Princess's mental health issues and then it's just kind of dropped and nothing comes of it, then I don't see why we had to sit through 45 minutes of this. It just seems like it will be a waste of time if they don't use it again. I mean, if the comics are anything to go by, once Princess arrives at the Commonwealth, she doesn't really do anything. Her character doesn't really have a character arc. She just kind of gets there and just sort of fades into the background, appears in a few panels here and there, but doesn't really do a lot, which is why I never understood why she's such a fan favourite, because she doesn't really do anything in the comics. So, I don't know, unless The Walking Dead has big plans for her and is going to change it up and she will be more important in Season 11, I don't know, maybe she will be, I don't know, you know, I don't want to come out and say that it's pointless and that Princess is not going to do anything and, you know, that they shouldn't have done this episode, because I know I've been wrong when I mentioned something similar in the past, because I know in a video that I did a while ago now in which I compared the Walking Dead comics to the TV show, that I said that Judith should have died in the TV show at the prison like she did in the comics because she would never end up doing anything significant on the show, and people like to remind me every day on that video that I got that completely wrong, and I'm glad I did because I love Judith and I'm glad they kept her alive. So I don't know, I don't want to say that it's pointless because Princess isn't going to do anything because I may be wrong, but who knows? Who knows? I don't know. At this present moment in time, this episode does feel like, like filler, like a waste of time to me. I would have rather had an episode focus on, I don't know, Yumiko instead of Princess, because this is a character who's been on the show for, a season and a half. Arguably, she deserves to have more time and have her character explored more than Princess does, because we still don't know an awful lot about Yumiko. She's likeable, but there's a lot about her that we haven't looked into. But instead they gave it to Princess, who's been on the show for 3 episodes? It just felt a bit weird. I mean, I know the actress who plays Yumiko is British, so I think I read somewhere that she's in the UK and can't go over to the show because of COVID, so they actually had to get like a body double to play her at the end of the show. But I don't know, I mean, when you look at Tara, it took when was she introduced? Season 4, wasn't she? The middle of season 4, and then her solo episode was season 7, was it? That one where she went to Oceanside. So it took like 2.5 seasons for her to get an entire episode on her own. And now it's just like, oh, you've barely seen Princess. You probably don't give a shit about her. You haven't, grown to like her. You're not invested in her character. Here, have an entire episode about her. Why? And I think Princess's brevity on the show is another reason why the hallucination reveal just didn't land for me, because I mean, this episode feels very slow in its pacing. Like I said, not a lot happens, but the reveal about her mental health problems seems very rushed, in my opinion. I mean, I'm going to make a comparison to Mr. Robot now, so spoilers for that show, sorry, if you haven't seen it. And if you haven't, you should absolutely watch it because Mr. Robot is fantastic. So Mr. Robot spends the majority of its first season building up to this reveal that Mr. Robot doesn't actually exist. He's another personality in Elliot's head. And a lot of the things we see, we see Mr. Robot carrying out actions and doing things, and Elliot sort of sitting there in the background as a passenger, but in reality it's actually him doing these things. And it's similar to the way that in the scene in which we saw Princess, standing in the background, sitting there whilst Ezekiel was strangling the guard, when in reality it was actually her. And I think it's not until episode 8 that Elliot starts to figure this out and kind of pieces the bits together. And I just felt the build-up to it was wonderful. It was a great payoff, and it's one of those shows that when you go back and watch it again, you can see all the clues, you can see how it's hidden in plain sight the entire time. And yeah, I just felt that the build-up worked, and I was invested in his character, so I cared about the reveal. And I mean, I think the reveal in season 2 is even better, but I won't spoil that. Watch the show yourself. Please watch it. It's really good. But, as for Princess, it's like this is the first episode that's focused on her, and in the space of 45 minutes, it's like all this stuff happens, but it doesn't actually happen. It's just in her head. And then when that reveal came, I just kind of shrugged my shoulders and was like, oh, okay. Like, I'm not invested enough in her character at this point to give a shit, Like, if it had been built up over time, say the course of a season, and there'd been clues, and we'd seen Princess do these kind of things, and we'd seen a character that only maybe Princess spoke to, or we'd seen her talk to Ezekiel, and then we'd gone to Ezekiel, and Ezekiel said, like, oh, I don't remember having that conversation with you, I wasn't actually there, and you could kind of see it coming, there was foreshadowing, and then it was revealed, I'd be like, oh, right, that's interesting. But to just dump, this character on us and have all these things happen and then say, oh, none of what you've seen in these last 40 minutes actually happened, I was like, it just felt so rushed to me, Apologies for the noise, it looks like they're taking the bins outside at the moment. I also didn't like the line of dialogue when Princess was having a hallucination of Ezekiel standing outside a gate, like, sort of cuddling 2 walkers for some reason, and then she says, oh, I'm a superhero, and I was just thinking, oh god, because I hate this trope of like characters with mental health problems going, oh, my mental health illness is my superpower, I'm a superhero, and I was just like, really? You nearly killed a guard because you had a hallucination, something which you couldn't control, you nearly killed this dude, but it's okay because you're a superhero, Doesn't matter if you're hallucinating Ezekiel with a couple of walkers, you're a superhero. Like, oh, for fuck's sake. I mean, again, going back to Mr. Robot, Elliot in that show, the protagonist Elliot, he's capable of truly amazing things, but he never comes out and says, oh, I'm a superhero, because he hates himself. He's depressed, he's lonely, he cries, he abuses drugs, you know, he doesn't like himself, so he's never going to say, oh, my mental health is my superpower, because he struggles with it, you know, he struggles with it, and to me, that's a better representation of mental health than for someone going, oh, it's my superpower. Like, I don't know, to me it just kind of makes light of the subject to have a character in the, you know, media who has a mental illness or whatever and says, oh, it's my power, because I mean, I've made no secret about this before. I'm sure I've mentioned it in a couple of times in a previous videos. Well, I must have done, because some dude emailed me the other week and was asking about my mental health. Some guy who reached out and was like, oh, I'm a big fan. How's your mental health? I know you mentioned it before, which was quite nice, actually, to have a random email by someone. Yeah, it's quite nice to you know, just to hear that, you know, nice surprise. But yeah, I've had depression since like I was a kid, and I've never felt like a fucking superhero because of it. You know, it's shit struggling with it. So I didn't like that line. I mean, maybe I'm being a Karen here, and maybe I'm getting offended by something I shouldn't, and I'm totally, you know, misinterpreting this line and taking it out of context. Maybe she just said it because it was a silly thing to say. Maybe she just was like, oh, I'm a hero, I'm a badass. Maybe it was just, I don't know, maybe I am taking it out of context. I don't know, let me know below. But I mean, if it is the whole superhero illness trope, then yeah, that annoys me, but maybe I'm just reading too much into this line, I don't know. So what did I like about this episode? Well, despite me not really caring about its main core premise and not really caring about the hallucination twist, I can't deny that I do have more sympathy now for Princess than I did coming into this episode. I mean, prior to this episode, I just found her to be irritating and, well, she still is annoying in my personal opinion, but I know that deep down she has a nice heart, and, you know, the things she's doing, they aren't her fault. She is trying to do the best she can, and yeah, you know, I like her a bit more, but I mean, I do still find her really fucking annoying, if I'm honest. I did like how some of her insecurities seem to play into some of her hallucinations. So, for example, when she has a hallucination of Ezekiel, she says something to Ezekiel like, oh, we need to save Yumiko and Eugene, we need to get them out. And then Ezekiel says, oh, don't you think I know that? They're my friends. And the way he says it is kind of like saying, you know, yeah, they're my friends, not your friends. And we know that Princess craves companionship, she craves friendship, so again, this is showing that she's insecure, you know, and worried that these people don't actually like her and that they may leave her, and, you know, I liked that. And also in the scene where she has a hallucination of Eugene is saying something to her like, don't mess this up again, you know, don't mess this up for all of us. And again, I think that's another of her insecurities coming out, because she's worried about always messing things up and always getting things wrong and always being the one to blame for problems or whatever. So I did like how that was presented. Come the end of the episode, Princess is taken outside by the Commonwealth Guard, and we see Yumiko, Eugene, and Ezekiel with bags over their head, and then it ends on a cliffhanger. And I kind of just felt that was a bit cheap, because the story didn't really go anywhere from episode 16. Like, it was finally things were getting interesting. Finally something was happening, the plot was going forward, and then it was like, right, you've got to wait now till season 11. And I mean, you could make the argument about all of these episodes that none of them have really moved the plot forward, because they are all kind of bottle episodes and focusing on these little stories. But with this episode taking place after episode 16, with it taking place after that cliffhanger, well, you know, originally it was going to be the end of season cliffhanger, I assume, if they weren't going to do these 10C episodes. I don't know, maybe they plan to do 10C anyway, I don't know. But with it coming after the end of that cliffhanger, I thought maybe we would learn some answers from this episode. Maybe we'd learn a bit more about the Commonwealth, we'd see a bit more action, but no, it was just another episode when the plot didn't go forward. And yeah, I mean, I'm not really sure if these 6 episodes were a mistake, to be honest, because the viewers are now dropping down. I think, you know, even though I like a couple of episodes, and I think Here's Negan is going to be good as well, I think you're also going to get a lot of people who are tuning into The Walking Dead again and are just annoyed that the plot isn't going anywhere. There might be people who, you know, don't understand that these 6 episodes are structured the way they are because of COVID, and want to see more and want to find out more about the Commonwealth and want to see a resolution, and, you know, things move on from episode 16, and then they've got to sit through 6 episodes in which the plot doesn't really move forward, and we've seen viewer numbers go down again and a lot of negative reactions. So I don't know, I mean, I know The Walking Dead didn't want to leave a massive gap between this season and next season, but I don't know, part of me maybe thinks that giving the show a bit of space and a bit of time between this season and final season might have been a good thing. So yeah, I don't know, I'm not sure now that 10C should have really happened. I don't know. You would literally watch the opening clip of this episode in which the protagonists fight off or try to fight off the Commonwealth Guards and then skip to the ending, about 2 minutes of footage. You don't really need to see the rest of the episode. Of course, that is unless Princess's mental health and hallucinations play a big role in the coming season, but if they don't, then yeah, you've kind of wasted 40 minutes watching this. So for me, this episode was just as bad, if not worse, than the Daryl and Dog episode. Yeah, I didn't like it. So hopefully next week's episode is better, but then I've seen some sort of early reviews or Reddit, posts and posts on Twitter from people who've already seen the next episode who say it's one of the worst of the show. So yeah, not looking forward to that. I mean, it's kind of a bit worrying if next week's episode does turn out bad, because that's 2 Carol and Daryl episodes we've had which won't be very good, and they're in the spin-off together, so it doesn't bode well for that. But we'll see. Hopefully next week's episode is better. I mean, if you're a big Princess fan, which I know there are lots of fans of Princess out there, I don't understand why. Like I said, I've never really cared for a character in the comics, but there are a lot of people who do love Princess and can relate to her. I guess maybe they're from the same background, or have the same issues or whatever. Yeah, if you're a big Princess fan, then you're going to love this episode. You probably will think it's a great episode. So, I'm happy for you if you do like Princess and if you do like this. But if you're like me and you just kind of feel this episode is unwarranted and undeserved, you don't really, not that into her as a character, and then this reveal, again, is probably not going to, it's not going to mean much to you, and you're not really going to care about it, yeah, you won't like it. So, yeah, I didn't like it. I just thought it was bad. Probably the worst of the Tennessee episodes we've had so far, in my opinion. Yeah, what can I say? Disappointing. So let me know your thoughts below. I can't even think what I'm going to say now. Did you like this episode or not? Do you agree with me or not? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comments below. And yeah, see you all very soon for next week's episode, which I hope isn't terrible. All right, thank you. Goodbye.